For all their faults, Pokémon Sun and Moon did some things really well. My favorite wasn't the awesome regional variants, multi-dimensional beings, ability to creepily lay on everyone's bed, or teleport Pokemon to get in the bag. No, but rather, its villain. I genuinely believe we got one of Pokemon's most chillin' villains ever. Until Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were released and absolutely shattered their character arc. Or did it? If it's not clear yet, be warned that this video will contain massive spoilers for all 4 games already mentioned. See, when I started researching this video, I had this idea in mind that USUM, the villain in question, had been absolutely wrecked by Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. This isn't exactly an uncommon idea either, with lots of people complaining about how the Necrozma games handled her. But as I replayed the games and researched more to, write a cohesive script, imagine that, I realized that there are lots of people who also love the direction USUM went in the upgraded versions. That's when this video switched focus a bit. Instead of explaining why the new versions ruined the villain and most story arcs related to her, I figured I'd look at both sides and try to answer the question, did Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon ruin USUM? Without further ado, let's have a look, shall we? Before we get into the topic though, I feel some context is needed. At the risk of making lots of you feel very old, the most recent games in these 4 titles came out over 5 years ago, and potentially even longer ago depending on when you're watching this video. So I'll go ahead and give you all a brief reminder of the relevant story facts in each game. Remember that this video does have chapters, so if you feel like you don't need the reminder, feel free to skip to the next section of the video. In Pokémon Sun and Moon, the originals, our characters move into Alola from Kanto. Right in the beginning, we get a cutscene of Lily running inside Ether Paradise before getting teleported out by the Pokémon we'd eventually come to know as Nebby. 3 months later, we move to Alola and Lily is now living with Professor Kukui in his attic. Make sure not to approach her living space though. Our first meeting with her is when her Cosmog, Nebby, does what he does best and escapes from the bag, getting itself into trouble. Lily is terrified of Pokemon and has no reaction but to beg us to help Nebby when it's attacked by Spearows on a beaten up bridge. Ever the gallant knight, our character jumps in there and holds Nebby, who then, kinda counterproductively decides to blow the bridge up. Thanks, little buddy. Before we meet our end though, Tapu Koko saves us and gives us a stone for our Z bracelets in the process. Sweet! Then begins a bunch of stuff that really doesn't matter much. We take on our first, and second, and third, and fourth trials. We viciously wreck the first Kahuna's life. We meet in school, we go to another island, we fight Hall multiple times. We meet a funny hiker, we meet a rude guy called Gladion. List goes on and on and on. Not all necessarily in that order, mind you. The relevant bit to us starts again near the end of the second island, after we visit the Dimensional Research Lab and meet Kukui's wife. We come across some extremely fashionable folks. Like seriously, have you seen Faba's glasses? And, we help them out. They are so grateful that they decided to give us the opportunity to, and I quote, I think I quote anyway, see something incredible. So naturally, we beat the Kahuna and, like responsible 11-year-old kids often do, we go with the fashionable strangers into their boats and get taken away to their facility, without telling our moms. Turns out this facility is called Ether Paradise, a place where the Ether Foundation keeps Pokemon safe. It's a gorgeous place that certainly doesn't look like it hides any dark, mysterious secrets. Even when you, as the player, come across the very location Lily was seen running from in the intro, the only thing you can think of is, so Lily is against Pokemon conservation, I see. The staff adds to how great everything looks. Faba has great taste in glasses, Wiki is the mom I've always wanted, and Lusamine is the mom I've always had. I mean, ignoring the obvious issues that need to be treated in therapy, the first time you go to Ether Paradise really does seem perfect, until you meet Lusamine. Lusamine seems very nice at first, but even at the time, she seemed a bit off to me. Just one of those people, you know? She says that she showers all with her love, including those from out of this world. Then Hal makes the mistake of mentioning Lily, and Lusamine gets visibly annoyed, shortly after mentioning that everything would be better if kids just listen to their parents. And then, as if on cue, a portal opens up and Lily comes out of it. Wait, did I say Lily? Sorry, I meant Nihilego. I hope I pronounced that right. Easy mistake to make given that Lusamine dressed Lily like Nihilego, really. Anyway, we beat it up and Lusamine is ecstatic, saying that she still needs a Pokemon and that she will get Nihilego and will love it. Coming on a bit strong, aren't you? After that, our visit is cut short and we're sent off to continue our island challenge in the game's third island. It goes well enough. We read books with Lily, we clear 2 trials, beat Big Bad Guzma, the guy who allegedly beats you down and never lets up. There's a lot. We also see Gladion again, who tells us Cosmog is dangerous and needs to be protected, refuses to elaborate and leaves. Oh yeah, and we rampage through a whole town. Yeah, that's really fun actually. Pole Town is definitely a highlight of these games. And then, when we get back from the town, we find out Lily has been kidnapped by Team Skull. Gladion's pissy at us, and instead of realizing that we are on borrowed time to save Lily, and on the same team, he decides to attack us for screwing up. Great logic there, bud. We beat him up, and he tells us to join him in rescuing Lily in Ether Paradise. I know, nobody could possibly have guessed the Ether Foundation would turn out to be evil. I know I was shocked, I tell you, shocked! But like good little minions, we follow Gladion and he leads us into battle! There we beat up Faba and head to the secret laboratories under the Foundation. In the labs we learn some pretty cool things. We find out Cosmog is actually an Ultra Beast that is able to open portals between dimensions. We also discover that Professor Mon, Lusamine's husband, discovered the portals and that Ultra Beasts from a different dimension lay beyond them. But above all else, we discover that Ether Foundation has created a device to force Cosmog to create portals by stressing it out. And yes, by stressing it out, they mean good old torture. So, yeah, we need to get to Nebby as soon as possible. On our way back though, we stop by the other lab and discover files about Type Null. They were artificially created literally to be beast killers, but were unstable and thus cryogenically frozen for eternity. That is, until Gladion found out and stole a Type Null before getting the hell out of Ether Foundation. Good on him for saving a Pokemon, even if he did leave the other 2 there. Oh well, nobody's perfect. Anyway, our team gets back to the first floor only to find itself surrounded by Ether folks, including Faba. A guy even says that now that we've seen the darkness in Ether Paradise, they'll need us all to conveniently disappear. Yup. Just, you know, casually talking about kidnapping and potentially murdering kids. Gladion also tells sweet innocent Hal that Lusamine is real nice to people as long as they don't mean anything to her. Yikes. Anyway, we find out where Lusamine is and fight through a bunch of Team Skull members to get to her. And yeah, you heard me right, Team Skull. Turns out Guzma is in cahoots, sorry I just love this word, with Lusamine, and he and his team did indeed bring Nebby and Lily to Ether Paradise. We beat up Guzma, who is again unable to accept he sucks, and then finally reach Lusamine. And then we see her true nature, Sorsa. She's very abusive towards Lily, saying that she can't fathom why a gifted young trainer such as us would bother with Lily. She also says she has no children, especially wretch like Lily and Gladion who dare reject her love. Savior complex much? And if you think this is bad, wait until you see what comes after. She brings us to her secret room, which has a bunch of cryogenically frozen Pokemon to preserve their beauty. Howl, Lily, Gladion, and eventually Guzma all follow us, and Lily pleads for her mom to not use Nebby's power because it will kill him. Lusamine obviously doesn't care and chooses to just open as many portals as she possibly can. And so, Alola is flooded with Ultra Beasts, and Kahunas all over fight alongside the Guardians to ensure that Alola isn't, like, you know, destroyed and stuff. And of course, one of the portals that open is right above Lusamine. A Nihilego comes out and we fight Lusamine to stop her from, you know, doing her thing with Nihilego, whatever her thing is. After being beaten, Lusamine decides to abandon her life as a mom and conservationist and jumps into the portal with Nihilego, Guzma in tow. Nebby survived the whole ordeal but evolved into Cosmoem and is immobile. Gladion and Lily are determined to save their mom because, while abusive, she is still their mom. So the crew goes to sleep and in the morning, we meet Lily's Z-powered form. Or, you know, so she calls it. It's really like a clothes change. But at the same time is a clothes change that represents her growth. So yeah, I'll take the powered form. This is where her character truly begins to change, and not just physically. While even when talking to Lusamine, she already demonstrated courage and a desire to give her mother a piece of her mind, her change in design really cements this determination. Shortly afterwards, Gladion shows up with a Moon Flute, or the Sun Flute depending on your version of the game. From then on, your course is set to awaken the legendary Pokemon of Alola in Pony Island. It is said to have the power to travel to other worlds and dimensions, and as such, might be able to reach Lusamine. At least, that's the hope. So we go back to our journey and reach Pony Island. Apple becomes the island kahuna and we go to Executor Island to find the other flute to awaken the legendary Pokemon. The island actually has one of the best cutscenes in the game in my opinion because it gives us some much needed context on Lusamine. Lily tells us all about a time in her childhood in which her mom was actually very loving. Lily went out to sing in the rain like she saw in the movie, and Lusamine, instead of scolding her in the name of beauty and perfection, joined her in the rain. They were a happy family. Lily also says that we give her courage and she wants us to keep traveling together, with her as a trainer. Again, this is a very nice cutscene. Keep that in mind. We get the other flutes and we leave. We fight the kahuna, blitz through the last trial, and eventually reach the altar. There, Lily says that she will make her mother listen to her, even if she's not a trainer, further showing how much more certain of herself and determined she got over the journey. Lily and the main character both play their flutes and all hell breaks loose. Well, not really, but you know, I'm dramatic. A beam shoots out into a platform and Cosmoem flies from Lily's bag and into the beam, evolving into your version's legendary. In my case, Solgaleo. It's honestly a pretty sick moment. Lily begs for help saving her mom, and the legend picks us both up and transports us through the Ultra Wormhole into Nihilego's world. There, we find Guzma, who tells us that he got possessed by Nihilego and felt terror for the first time in his life. He then says to give up on Lusamine as she's long gone by now and there's simply no talking to her. Lily, however, remains resolute and presses onwards. Lusamine ends up creepily blinking into existence. She's very happy living in that world, in which there's nothing but her, Nihilego, and their love. Lusamine starts to rant about how she cares not about things that are ugly. Lily goes off on her, shocks her mom, and probably gets grounded for a month in the process. Or, you know, that's what would happen if Lusamine cared, But alas, she pretty much calls Lily ugly and fuses with Nihilego to become a monster of sorts and kick the children out of her world. Well, that fails, as we're there and the protagonist never loses. Beast Lusamine gets her ass handed to her and the two are forcibly unfused, causing the bomb to fall. Lily rushes over and Lusamine opens her eyes, smiling after seeing Lily. Almost as if a cloud is lifted from her eyes, her last words are, "When did you start becoming beautiful?" Before passing out. Overall, this is a very powerful moment. Again, remember that. So Galeo brings us back to our world with Guzma, Lusamine, Lily. We get Nebby to our party and proceed to the league. We fight Gladion, we beat the Elite Four, we beat Champion Kukui, we have a party, everything is great. Until we find out that Lily is leaving post-game. She takes Lusamine, who is very weak after the events with Nihilego, and heads to Kanto as she heard that Bill fused with a Pokémon and unfused with no consequences. The objective here is to cure her mom. At the same time, we can also learn from Gladion that his father, Mon, disappeared in an experiment with the Ultra Wormholes, only leaving behind a weakened Cosmog and his papers on Nihilego. He thinks that's when his mother's obsession started. And honestly, I think that's a pretty good guess. And that's it. That's it for Sun and Moon. Oof, quite a long tale, isn't it? But I promise, all of this is necessary to understand what comes next. And what comes next, you might ask? Why, the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon recap. Okay, this Sun and Moon recap isn't super important to understand the Ultra Sun recap, but all of them are important for what comes after both recaps. Just bear with me, okay? It's a little bit longer. So, in the Ultra versions, things are more or less the same in terms of story for a while. I mean, you get some weirdos called the Ultra Wrecking Squad, who are clearly not from our world showing up every once in a while, and there are minor differences here and there, but it's mostly the same story. Until you first get to Ether Paradise. This time, Lusamine proclaims that she will protect Alola's light from Necrozma and all other Ultra Beasts. She also even claims that she's been experimenting with opening wormholes, something that she didn't do in the originals. This is in stark contrast to the original Lusamine, who admits the experiments and claims she needs to protect the Ultra Beasts, not beat them. After this, all stuff on Island 3 is more or less the same, with the exception of Gladion's fight after Lily's taken, which I honestly like better. He still attacks us for letting her get kidnapped, in his eyes, but, you know, this time, he at least voices out loud that he needs to vent his frustration. It's an excuse, even if it's a terrible one. We beat him and go back to Ether Paradise. The infiltration's mostly the same, until we reach Lusamine. And that's when everything changes. In Ultra Sun, she claims she will use Nebby's power to save Alola. She says that if Necrozma steals Alola's light, she will not be able to appreciate her collection of frozen Pokémon anymore. Right after that, she says she hates the Ultra Wormholes due to what they did to Mon, which is why she must be the one to go in and fight Necrozma. Her love will, after all, protect all. Cosmog resists opening the wormhole while Gladion and Lily worry for Lusamine. So what does she do? She fights us to quell their fears and prove she can handle herself. That backfires a lot as she loses, but you know, she just conveniently ignores that and jumps in the hole anyway with Guzma. Back out of her cryogenics lab, the Ultra Recon squad is shocked that USUM went after Necrozma without telling them and that she wants to beat it for her own satisfaction. They actually feel betrayed. The next day, Lily is in her Z-powered form and everything proceeds as normal. Ish. In Island 4, Lily chooses not to go to Executive Island with us. Mina now has a trial, Hapu's fight is no longer at the same time it usually was, and things are overall pretty different. But the main difference comes after they reach the Alta. This time when Solgaleo appears, a rift randomly shows up and Guzma and USUM both get spat out from the rift, with Necrozma following in their heels. USUM is concerned and tells Lily to run because Necrozma is a monster and she can't do anything against him. But Nebby can. It fights with Necrozma, but to no avail. It loses and gets absorbed by the monster. As soon as it takes control of Solgaleo, it starts opening a ton of wormholes all over Alola. Necrozma then steals Alola's light and leaves. Lily is concerned about Necrozma, claiming it must be suffering, and USUM calls her a sweet, foolish child to worry about the monster. It's all up to us now. We head after him using the Ultra Recon Squad's Lunella and breach Ultra Megalopolis, aka just a fancy name for a corridor, in case you were curious. No, I'm not salty, what gave you that idea? Anyway, there, another member of the Ultra Recon Squad explains Necrozma's story to us. They used to provide light, but their ancestor got too greedy and took too much, making it lose a part of itself. Since then, Necrozma has devoured light to try and heal. Armed with the knowledge, we climb the tower Necrozma is supposedly at and find it at the top. It promptly evolves into Ultra Necrozma. We crack our knuckles and jump in to kick some ass. Well, okay. We change our build, crack our knuckles and jump in to kick some ass. Okay, well, we cheese the shit out of Ultra Necrozma. And finally kick some ass. When we get back, USUM says that Lily was right about everything she stood for. Lily also says that she had a chance to talk to her mom off camera and came to understand a lot of things. They both decide to care for Nebby together, who's hurt after being used by Necrozma. We finish the league, fight Champion Hall this time, have a festival, and in this version, Gladion's the one who leaves for Kanto. USUM even goes to the port to say goodbye. And that's it. Really. So, what'd you think? 10 out of 10 storytelling skills? What about the stories themselves? Do you prefer the Ultra versions or the original versions? I'll tell you what I thought when I finished the Ultras. I prefer the originals. In fact, I was slightly outraged. The games had an incredible premise with Necrozma stealing the light of Alola. I mean, how cool is that? But then, they were released and originally I just couldn't get over the fact that it vastly changed the thing I liked most about the originals, USUM. And a lot of people online also felt the same way, for a number of reasons that I hope to be able to properly explain here. However, I always do research before creating a script because I always want to see other points of view to find out whether or not I'm missing something vital. And honestly, I found out quite a few people actually enjoyed what Ultra Sun and Moon did with USUM, which was very surprising to me. But the more I read, the more I found out why, and the more sense it made. I still think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon did massively screw up both Lusamine and Lily's arcs, but I wanted to bring arguments from both sides so you can all come to your conclusions yourselves. The first topic I want to talk about is Nihilego itself. This is the most glaring difference between both stories. In Sun and Moon, we have a Lusamine that is obsessed with finding this Ultra Beast, to the point that she clearly states that all she wants is to protect her precious beast, and she does not care about anyone else. Something she says to her children, mind you, Mother of the Year, I know. Meanwhile, in the Ultras, we have a polar opposite. Nihilego shows up once during the storyline, and only as a pretext for Lusamine to say that she will protect Alola. Again, in this very same scene in Sun and Moon, she states that she will save and love the Ultra Beast. So, in one game she's obsessed with Nihilego, and in the other she isn't. Why? A popular theory that is widely accepted is that it's because Lusamine has been subjected to Nihilego's neurotoxins. According to the Pokédex, Nihilego is a parasite that can produce a strong neurotoxin, which it applies to hosts upon infesting them. This neurotoxin works by enhancing the host's desires, stimulating intense feelings of excitement and causing loss of inhibition. Basically, makes people obsessed with their goals. Sounds familiar, right? If taken as gospel, this explanation is very effective for Sun and Moon. Mon vanishes and leaves behind Nebby and notes on Nihilego. Lusamine goes searching, gets infected by one, then becomes obsessed with joining with the Nihilego, throwing out everything in her path, including her own children. It would even explain why she changed from a seemingly caring mother, as Lily recounts on Executor Island, to the monster that she became. On the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon side of things, however, things get a bit muddier. She is simply not obsessed with Nihilego. In fact, she treats it as an enemy. The simplest explanation would be that in the Ultra Sun and Moon timeline, she just never came in contact with the Ultra Beast and was never infected by the neurotoxins. But then, how does one explain the fact that she literally dressed Lily to look like Nihilego? Good question. And yes, I'm complimenting my own question. Furthermore, another inconsistency with the neurotoxin theory is Guzma himself. He claimed to have been possessed by a Nihilego in its ultra space. By the utter terror he expressed, I don't doubt it. But through some unclear motives, he was released, with no consequences. How then are we to believe that the neurotoxin has worsening effects on a person after they are released by Nihilego? One could say that it just works differently from person to person, but in that case, why would Lusamine be under the effect of Nihilego's neurotoxins for years after contact, and yet instantly show improvement after we separated Lusamine and Nihilego's fusion? After all, remember that, right after that, for the very first time in a long time, Lusamine saw Lily and called her beautiful, for a look that she would never once have approved. You can even see it in this manga page. Don't get me wrong, the neurotoxins are my favorite explanation for everything. Sun and Moon Lusamine was infected, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Lusamine was not. But to those who are not convinced, another explanation that has been offered is that Lusamine is simply very traumatized. She lost her husband through an accident, and her perfect family was suddenly shattered. She saw the Nihilego research and became obsessed with it, as a way to find Mon again. The cryogenic Pokémon in her labs? Her obsession with beauty? That's all her way of protecting what she has left after losing the most beautiful thing she had. Her family. Within this theory, Sun and Moon Lusamine never had anything to sink her obsession into. Well, aside from finding Mon, that is, and Nihilego was her biggest clue. This is also around the time Type Null was created. Its mere existence suggests that, at some point, Lusamine saw the Ultra Beasts as the enemy. However, in focusing more and more on her work, she lost sight of her ultimate goal, wanting instead solely to find Nihilego. In the Ultras, the Ultra Wrecking Squad arrived before Lusamine went off the deep end, giving her an outlet for her obsession, protecting Alola's light. But yet again, nothing about this theory explains why she would give Lily clothes that resemble Nihilego. Aside maybe from her wanting to never lose sight of her goal after seeing Mon's research, but even that feels like a major stretch. I'll let you pick your reason for her obsessions. But whichever you choose, one fact remains. She is obsessed with Nihilego in the originals, and she isn't in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And quite honestly, this is the biggest factor against the Ultra versions in my opinion, for the simple fact of how much growth opportunity it robs from Lily and Lusamine. In the original games, we have a Lusamine that is so obsessed she is completely abusive towards her children. She just wants that beautiful Pokémon to add to her collection. Witnessing this and the main character's feats during the game give Lily the courage to stand up to her mother, and as a result we end up getting an incredible scene in the Ultra space with both of them. We get to see Lily absolutely tearing her mom a new one, and we get to see Lusamine finally acknowledging Lily for the beautiful and bright kid she is. Quite honestly, Sun and Moon feel like Lily's story rather than ours, and I say this is the biggest compliment I can give the game. Ultra Sun and Moon, on the other hand, strip all that away. Lusamine is still abusive, but this time she's also somewhat of a hero, even if she only wants to save the world for her own selfish purposes. And in fact, her abusive personality seems to drop off completely after she gets her ass handed to her by Necrozma. Almost as soon as she's pooped back out of the wormhole during the Pony Island Alta sequence, she tells Lily to run, because she won't be able to face off against the monster that's coming. She loses, fails her goal, and the first thing she does is show concern. I saw a comment that I wish I could find again to show here, but it basically said that in Sun and Moon Lily had to take Lusamine to Kanto to heal, while in the Ultras she just had to get beaten up into becoming good. And the biggest slap in the face comes after we beat Ultra Necrozma. As soon as we get back, Lily's like, yeah, so I talked to my mom off camera and I understand her now. Yeah, not great depending on who you ask. For a lot of people, abuse was actually better portrayed here than in the originals, and I can definitely see why. If you consider most people believe the Neurotoxin theory, you can easily see why most people think the game gives Lusamine an excuse for her abuse in the originals. Not a justification, mind you, just a reason for it to happen. The neurotoxins. If her mind is being corroded by an Ultra Beast, she will get more aggressive and abusive towards her loved ones. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, there is no explanation like that. She wasn't exposed, for sure, she is just plain mean, even if out of trauma. Some people actually prefer the story thread being handled this way because, unfortunately, abusive parents do exist and they are not few and far between. The way Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon portrayed Lusamine feels, for some people, more real in the abuse department, more authentic. You'd think that would be a bad thing, but for lots of people, it isn't. Accuracy tends to be important, even in cases like this. Furthermore, their story thread more or less finishes with Lusamine declaring that she will care for Nabby after its encounter with Necrozma and that Lily will help. Lily happily trails after her mother, glad to finally be able to understand her better. Again, nothing changed with Lusamine here aside from getting destroyed by Necrozma. In Sun and Moon, the toxins, if they are to be believed, started to go away after Nihilego was beaten, which is why Lusamine was able to call Lily beautiful. However, since there is no reason for Lusamine's abuse in the Ultras, there is no way for it to magically go away, so it stands to reason that it didn't. And that's why it feels so sad and at the same time so real to see Lily reacting so positively to being demanded help by Lusamine. At the end of the day, lots of kids stuck in an abusive situation just crave attention and approval from their parents and get happy with anything resembling that. Something you can clearly see in Lily. I can see why people would prefer this version of the story as it's more raw and, unfortunately, more relatable to some. I do, however, have to add a caveat here. If Lusamine became abusive in the Ultra versions due to trauma from Mon's disappearance, she does get an opportunity to heal from that. At the end of the game, there is a special cutscene, a hidden cutscene, in which an amnesia-ridden Mon shows up at Ether Paradise and interacts with Lusamine. She sees that he is happy taking care of Poképelago and just decides to leave him be, much to Gladian's surprise. So, at least this Lusamine gets the opportunity to move on, and we can only hope that it shows in the treatment that she gives to her kids. At the same time, however, the Ultra versions lacked a vital thing that made lots of people love the originals: Lily breaking the cycle of abuse. In Sun and Moon, Lily was able to stand up to her mom and give her a great piece of her mind. However, in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, this was not the case. Again, I prefer the originals, but it really is a matter of preference. Some of you will find that the story arc was better handled in the originals, and some of you will prefer the more raw reality of the Ultra versions. After all, unfortunately, it's not every kid that manages to stand up to the abusive nature of their relationship with their parents, if it exists. While these are all subjective things, there were a bit more objectively better and worse differences between the two versions of the tale. One glaring omission that I simply see no reason to be gone in Ultra Sun and Moon is the Executor Island cutscene with Lily. There, she talks about how her mom used to be and really shows her character growth by stating her desires and what she resolved to do. It helps establish that her mom has not always been abusive like she now is. On the other hand, the Ultras fix a potential major plot hole regarding Lusamine in the originals. In those, she says the Ultra Beast is suffering and she needs to help them. Suffering because they're outside their original habitats, mind you. And then she proceeds to open up tons of portals around Alola and dump Ultra Beasts everywhere. Interesting tactic there, Lusamine. In Ultra Sun and Moon, the ones that open the wormholes are Solgaleo and Necrozma during their fight. Although in these versions, Lusamine also has no love for the Ultra Beast, so her opening all the wormholes would actually make more sense here, but anyway, I digress. And while we're talking about wormholes, I gotta say that Lusamine's treatment of Nebby actually changes a lot of her character between both versions. In Sun and Moon, she is willing to sacrifice Nebby just to reunite with Nihilego. In Ultra Sun and Moon, she is willing to sacrifice it to save Alola's light. Sure, she wants to save Alola's light for her own personal gain, but the objective is at least disguised as a more noble one, as seen by Hal proclaiming that he knew she was actually a nice person. Personally, I prefer the unhinged Lusamine who is openly willing to sacrifice Nebby just to see Nihilego, but again, it really is a matter of preference. The point to all this is that it's just not all a black and white of a situation, and I don't make reference to the older Pokemon titles, I make reference to all or nothing kind of thing. To some people, Lusamine and Lily were both ruined in the Ultra versions as they had lots of screen time and character development stolen, while to others, the more real nature of things made their arc better. And I think at this point I have to ask the question, does it even matter? Because this is another point that I constantly saw being parroted online, this is a different storyline. It doesn't invalidate the original, it might even be a parallel reality in which the events just unfolded differently. If you think about it through these lenses, is there really a point to all the discussion we're having? I don't know. The truth is, I don't know the answer to any of these questions and things I brought up. Maybe there is no right answer. All I know is that I came into this video and its research convinced the Ultra versions had ruined one of Pokemon's best villains, and now I understand that for some people, it made her even better. And then this is something I can't argue with. It introduced actually a kick-ass villain in the form of Necrozma. I mean, a Pokemon that steals light? Come on, I wish it was handled a little bit better, done a bit more with without ruining Lusamine, but let's just not touch on that subject anymore. I still don't really agree that it made it better, but I can see why those who do would. And I hope that after watching this video, you do too. Regardless of which version you prefer, the one in which Lily fights back or the one with more raw abuse, both versions excel at showing off the one true villain in Gen 7. Abuse. You can see this not only with Lily and Lusamine, but also with Guzma. Guzma's house is full of broken golf clubs, with his father even directly more or less admitting to abusing the guy, before he got fed up, beat him back and ran from the house. These games tackle very real subjects, and while far from being perfect, I still really enjoyed them for what they attempted. With all that being said, if I really did prefer the originals, I guess all that's left for me to do is give a solution to the problems I mentioned. How would I change Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to better fit the foundation laid by Sun and Moon? I think the best way would be to just have two villains. They had to open a lot of space for Necrozma to be the main villain, and I don't think that was needed. Make it so USUM uses Ultra Recon Squad's help to further their goal of getting to the Nihilego. That would in turn be a much more effective betrayal to them than what we actually got. Then, due to her misusing the resources they offered, Necrozma would run rampant and attack our world while we try to save USUM. Necrozma comes in, steals the light, leaves without attacking Nebby. We take Nebby to USUM, save her, and then with her support, we head towards Necrozma. This is hardly great, mind you, but I think I got the idea across. Just keep both villains so that Lily's character development is kept. Who knows, maybe in the remakes we'll get a definitive edition of the story. Knowing Game Freak, that's not gonna happen, but hey, wishful thinking has never killed anyone. I think. But that will be it for me. If you're still watching, please let me know which of the two stories you prefer and why. I would love to hear from you all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Bye bye!